Every time I think I'm out, something happens to pull me back in. And here we go. Dragons down. Now, as you know, I'm kind of out of the video review guy game. Every once in a while, though, a friend of mine that I've made in the industry that will reach out to me, people that I've played games with at conventions, people that I've worked with in the past. One of the best things about the fact that I've had this channel going for as long as I have, and I've made the friends that I've had. That's like the best things that I've ever done. When Sean Brown and Scott Demers reached out to me about this one and asked if I'd be interested in doing this video, I said, geez, what can you tell me about it? And, well, as soon as Scott told me about it, I knew it was something I wanted to play at the very least. And once I played it with him online, I knew it was something that I wanted to do a video for. And this is going to be one of those things where I'm going to talk a little bit about the game, and I'm going to tell you stories. And it's going to be kind of an old school Undead Viking video, if you will. So anyway, the game is Dragons Down. I think this is Scott's homage and love affair with Magic Realm, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of my gaming life and Magic Realm and things like that. And but I'm also going to talk about this really, really awesome game. It kind of transcended to me at the right time in my life as a 51-year-old man who's been playing board games for most of my life, and playing D&D for since I was like 8, 9 years old. So so let's go ahead. I'm gonna dive into Dragons Down for you. I'm gonna talk to you about it, and then we're gonna come back here, and me and Ivan here are gonna give you our final thoughts. It's really late. Everybody else in the house is asleep, so while I'm recording this, so me and him are just hanging out together. All right, cool. Let's do this. Alright, so I'm going to show you Dragons Down. Now, this is not going to be a all-encompassing rules overview. This is going to highlight a few of the things you're going to be doing, celebrate some of the mechanisms, and I do invite you, I believe they're going to allow you to take a look at the beta rule book. The rules I have weren't finalized, I believe. Also, I did play a lot of this on Tabletop Simulator first before I actually had a physical copy. So I think they might be making that available to the public as well, so you'll be able to check it out there as well. But just keep in mind, the rules and what you're seeing in front of you and everything could change by the time this game gets published. But what I've learned, how I've learned how to play, this is pretty much, I believe, the vast majority of what is going to be present in the published game. I think this game shines as like a game that you can play just by yourself, solo. I definitely played it more solo than with other people. It does shine really well as a 2-player game as well. I did play it 3 players and we had fun. I mean, just keep in mind that the more players you add, the longer the game is going to last. I also think the game shines in kind of a sandbox mode. There are campaigns and ideas that you can do, but I do enjoy the whole attitude of like, hey, let's just sit down. We're going to play X number of turns. Whoever gets the most fame, whoever gets the most legendary points, the victory points of the game, they're the one that's going to win. And you can make up your own parameters as far as how you want the game to go and how many points you're going to need to win. That's totally up to you and the other players. For me, when I sat down and I played this mostly solo, when I sat down and played solo, I was just like, let's see how far I can go until I get killed, which is a lot like I played Magic Realm back in the day. But I've talked a lot without even showing you anything about the game, so let's go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about how you'll get the game set up and how you will choose your character and so on and so forth. So to begin the game, if you're just going to do a sandbox, which is what I've done here, I've just taken some of the tiles, and these tiles, they have to match up. You can't, when you set them up, you can't, let's see here, like set it up like this, so like that little spot right there doesn't match up. So you have to make it so all of the exits or whatever match up. Now you can have exits that go out of the map like here and here, and in fact you actually need those because that's how your hero is going to actually get onto the board to begin with. So you do that. And this is a conglomeration when you're playing with more than one player. Each person takes a turn kind of like placing a tile down and going for it. Depending upon the types of tiles you put down, they're going to determine what kind of terrain options you're going to have. Like here we have the caves and the mountains. There's also a forest that you have, or a woods, if you will, that I have as well. In this case, I just only have the caves and the forest. Now, what does this matter at all? It might be a little difficult to see, but you can see down here, depending upon which ones you have, you're going to have certain things that are going to be present at the game. Within the game. For one, you're going to have the Dwarven Mine, which is located here, and this is on this mine tile here. And this is determined randomly. There's spots 1, 2, 3, and 4. You roll a die, determine where that goes. So you place the Dwarven Mine there, and then you get to place the dwarves on there. Now, as again, this is a sandbox, so if you want to be the jerk and go there and try to kill the dwarves, you can do that. That's absolutely an option for you. What most people are probably going to do, though, is they're going to go to the dwarves and use them for their quests that they give you here, like the Mine of the Underking. And you're going to be doing their quests and trying to return their items to them to get legend points. There's also, in this case, here's the keep, and so that they have the knights on there. Again, you put that randomly. If you want to be the jerk, you want to go fight the knights and kill them, you can, but more or less likely you're probably going to use them as a quest or something so you can earn renown and legend points and money and so on and so forth. Alright, now also, depending upon which one you have in here, you're going to have some different treasure sites. And those different treasure sites will determine like the which sites you're going to have here. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but as you search the board, you will find different sites, and you'll get to place those onto the board. And those treasure sites will have, they'll have defenders, like tough defenders, but they'll also have really, really cool treasures that you can go and try to find out. All right, so now then, after all of said that, how do you come up with a character? Well, I made a dwarf warrior. You might be able to see it down here. It's got dwarf warrior, and that's got a bunch of different stats and things on there. I'm not gonna, again, I'll talk about that more when we get to combat. But when you get to play the game, you can kind of mix and match whatever you want. As far as you can take a lineage, which, like here we have the half orc, or here we have the elf, and then you can take, and there's lots of these, mind you, and then you can take like a class. In this case, like here's the illusionist, a cleric, and the conjurer or whatever. And as you probably have guessed, you combine those two things. And I want to show you something cool too. Like here's like a picture of the elf here on this side, and then you flip it over, and then like the male. So they represent lots of different options as far as how your character wants to look. And art's really cool in this game. And so like then you have like the conjurer, here. And then you put those together, and then those will determine the different like stats that you have, and like these are the 3 different stats you have, how much health you have, and the different cubes you get to have, and what have you. And on the back side you can see here's the warlock, so maybe so you can be an elf warlock or whatever. And there's so many different combinations as far as those go that you can definitely dive in and see what happens and how you want to go. But in this case, I went pretty classic. I went a rather stout dwarf with a gray beard. I wonder why. and we're going to use that, and I give him a warrior. And so, because as I've discovered in this game, it is very brutal, and it can definitely take a toll on you and knock you around. So the dwarf warrior starts with 3 health, which I like, and I like having that 3 health. All right, so after that, you'll have some starting equipment, and like in this case, like the warrior actually lists the equipment there in the bottom right. They start with a breastplate, an iron helm, a shield, and a short sword. And I went ahead and dug through the items deck to select those. Then you shuffle up that deck, and then so they're available. So later on, you might find items, you might buy items from merchants, things like that. And I went ahead and placed those on there as well. Again, when I get closer into combat, I will dive deeper into what all this stuff does and how it works and everything like that, but I just wanted to kind of give you that idea when you set up. Now when you begin the game, what happens is you're going to take your token and you're going to find a spot that you're going to want to start in. And I'm just going to put my token here to say that I'm starting in that spot. One of the reasons I'm starting there is because I want to go to the caves and I want to dig around in the caves to see what I can find. Because the caves have these treasure sites and what have you. Plus there's like an astrologer in there that can give me missions. But more importantly, and it's kind of tough to see, and I'm gonna I'll just grab this one here. And here's the Tri-Peak. But there's wandering monsters. And you can see in the Tri-Peak there's ogres and juvenile dragons. in there. So when you're rolling for wandering monsters, which I'll show how that works here in just a little bit, that's the kind of stuff you're run into in there. However, here in the dark passes where there are kobolds and giant bats, something a little less dangerous to challenge myself with, and then before I sink my teeth into something a little more dangerous. The idea here is that I'm going to find better equipment and better stuff that will allow me then to take on like dragons and what have you, and have a better shot at surviving those things. Remember, I'm like sandboxing this. I want to just see how far I can go before I die. Like I said, kind of like how I used to play Magic Realm back in the day. So since I'm just playing this solo, I will take my actions myself and I will just process them however. But normally what happens is you have a first player, they'll do all their actions, and the next person does all of their actions, and then so on and so forth as the game goes on. As you play the game, you will have a certain number of actions available to you, and then depending upon if you start off in caves, you have less actions to represent the fact that you have it's dark and you can't really see what's going on in there. So keep that in mind as well, that you have to there's an economy of actions. The actions are pretty straightforward as far as what you can do. You can sneak or hide. Sneaking and hiding, anybody can do that. You don't have to be a thief or a rogue or whatever you want to call it to do it. What that does is that if you're sneaking or you're hiding, there's a less chance the monsters are going to find you and attack you. It is, especially if you want to make sure you survive a little while until you gain some power, it's never a bad idea to sneak or hide if you want to. You can also have the choice of just making noise too. Like you're tough, you're ready to fight. I'm going to make noise, I'm going to try to make monsters find me. You can do that as well. That's this option right here called make noise. You can also do what's called alert. When you alert, that's an action you get to rearrange your equipment and interchange some things. You also get one extra brown cube when you start making your decisions as far as combat goes. Now I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Again, I know I'm punting a lot to combat right now because explaining combat is going to probably be the most difficult thing to explain because it is kind of a process. But once you get the process down, it works really well. I already talked about moving. You can search. So if you are in a location, just if you make it to a location and you're searching in a location, you get to roll these dice. These dice have these little, they have blanks on them, but they also have these little spyglasses on. And if you roll and you manage to get 2 spyglasses, you found something. And finding stuff is never a bad deal. Well, I shouldn't say it's never a bad deal, but it's usually a good thing when you find things. You can use it to find treasure or things or locations in the spots you're at, but also you might notice that there's these secret passages that connect different things together, and you can search for those. And I always thought it was kind of funny that okay, I know there's a secret passage there, but I gotta roll these 2 search icons to find it. But I mean, I don't know how else you'd show that, but you search, and then if you find it, you can then use that passage to go from that location to that location. If you are on a treasure spot where you want to loot, you can then loot dice, loot things. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but these are the loot dice. And when you roll these things, what you want to get is you want to get the 2 grabby icons, because the grabby icons allow you to get the best loot. Otherwise, depending upon the number that you roll, you are going to have to dig down into the cards that are in the location that you're going to search for. And I'll talk about treasures in here in a little bit. Again, I know I'm punting these things a little bit forward, and then you'll have to dig down into the deck, and the least treasures are towards the bottom of the deck, and the best treasures are on the top. So you definitely want to get those top treasures if you possibly can. And when you roll 2 grabby icons, it means you can dig through the top 3 cards and pick the one you want. So that's actually a really good thing to do. If you're a spellcaster, or even if you're not a spellcaster, but if you want to be able to cast a spell that you found on a scroll or a spell book you found, you can use the Learn ability to do that. If you're hurt, you can rest. If you want to go ahead, you can heal 1 cube for 2 actions, 2 cubes for 3 actions, or 3 cubes for 4 actions. You're going to get beat up a lot in this game. Mind you, I should mention, if you get killed, the game's not over. You just lose a little bit of your fame, you get resurrected, you get to come back, and you get to keep going. I mean, like I said, sometimes I play this game just till I die, and I see how well I do, and that's just a way you can play the game as well. But the game's not over if you don't want it to be, if you die. You can take a trade action if you're in the spot with a merchant. You can sell things that you have. You can buy things that the merchant has. And also, you can, sometimes you'll need to enchant something. And then if you, for 3 actions, you can place a magic cube that matches the color possessed, and then on here, and you get to, and those are really usually item or scenario dependent, depending upon what you're doing, but that's an action you can do as well. So when you first start playing, what you're most likely going to be doing is you're going to be moving from place to place on the board, trying to figure out where you're going, trying to figure out what you're doing. And then once your turn is done, like let's say I'm just in this cave, and actually let me take a step back. When you move into a place that is on the wilderness, not something that's civilized, like a keep or a mine area like that. If you move into a wilderness space, you need to go and draw the correct, this is a cave, you need to draw one of these icons here. In this case, like here, like I drew this one, and I hopefully you can see that, but it says treasure. And if I draw that, and I'm able to get treasure, what I can do is I can just draw the top treasure card. I can see what I get. In this case, I got a potion of healing, which is never a bad idea, because why is it? And then I can take that and I can place that in my items here that I have. It's a tool. I'm going to place it there as something I can do. A lot of times when you draw these, let me see if I can just draw one of it. Let me see here. Like, oh, well, here, I got lucky again. And that you draw an item. So then, like, you draw the top card off this, and here I got a mace, so I got another weapon. But here I can't really use that because I've already got a short sword, and I don't want it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that item in my backpack, like so. When you put items in the backpack, that's why you use the alert action to kind of dig through your backpack, and if you want to equip a different item if you wanted to. But this is how, like, you'll get things, you'll get results, that are also like sometimes you'll find a magic gate. Like here, you can place a gate in this mod, which there's other gates in the board. You can travel in the gates, but a lot of times you'll find nothing. You'll just won't be there, and that's just the way it goes. It's no big deal. But when you're in these spots and you search, that is when you can pull a site. In which case, like in this case, we have the mountains, we have the chambers, the horde, and the scholar, and like if you found let me find the right site here, like let's say you found, because the catacombs are in the caves, and so like you'd find the catacombs. And if you found the catacombs, then like you found the catacombs in the caves because you did a successful search, and now you've got to deal with the fact that the Dark Knight is in there, which is not a good idea, but that can be a little scary. But you can see there's 2 deep treasures and 5 treasures in that spot. So you can kind of go 2 deep treasures and then 5 treasures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you place those on the catacombs like so. And so now people can go to the catacombs. They might have to deal with the Death Knight that's there, but if they can like hide or evade or kill the Death Knight, that is how, if they're in that spot, they're allowed to roll on these 2 dice, and I got 1 grabby icon, but woo, I rolled a 1. So I actually just get to take the top deep treasure. And so in this case, like I got like the Mace of Smiting, which is, you know, obviously like a much more powerful item than just my boring old mace that I just found. And so then I could have that. But I mean, that's how, if you're lucky enough to search and find those things, you're able to place those on the board. But I'm not gonna, like, you know, let's just say I didn't do that. And let's say maybe I searched and I didn't find anything, and my turn is over. So now, after all that's said and done, we're gonna find out whether or not some monsters show up. In that case, we're gonna have the Wandering Monsters dice. Now, so this is a little bit confusing until you get the hang of it. I'll just say, so there are, at the bottom of each one of these, I said, remember I showed you they were like ogres and juvenile dragons. I put those on there. So that they have those symbols on there. And now we have these dice that, on some cases, we will have, on these dice, they have the different terrain items on there, but also they will have the different monster icons on there as well. And so if I happen to roll like the correct representation for where I am at, in which case, let's see here. So like if I rolled, and I'm gonna cheat, and I'm just gonna put it down there. So let's say I rolled I can't of course find the symbol, the one I'm looking for here, but I rolled a kobolds, or actually here, let's do this. I rolled giant bats, because that's a giant bats location, and then I rolled a claw symbol. Well, the claw symbol doesn't affect, and then what I rolled, and then I rolled, like, say, I'm gonna cheat a little bit here, but I'm gonna say 1 and a 2. So I rolled this, but now I have that and 1, meaning that I did have giant bats, and I have 1 that shows up. So what I have to do then is that there's tons of these, mind you, tons and tons and tons of these chips that are going to be in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these giant bats, and I'm going to place it onto the location that I'm at. And now, because I didn't, like, I'm not sneaking, I'm not hiding, you know, I am in a situation where I'm probably going to have to deal with the fact that this monster is going to show up, and he's going to want to beat me up, and this giant bat's going to want to kill me. So now, that's how monsters populate the board. Now, you would never, if you rolled something that matches on a hex that no hero is on, it doesn't matter. Nothing shows up. But if you're playing multiple players, you don't roll for each player. You just roll the dice, and whoever matches. And then it's just one die roll that affects everybody on the complete board, and that's how that does. So, all right, cool. Well, that's, like I said, a really, really brief overview of everything, and because I wanted to just kind of show you how that kind of works. I mean, you're going to be doing lots of cool things. You're going to want to travel to different merchants. You're going to find treasures that you can't use. So what are you going to do with those treasures? You're going to sell them, or you're going to use them in quests to turn them in. Like you have, like here, like you might be tough to see, but if you can bring, if you go to proof. Location mine, trade the treasure listed below, remove it from the game, and then you're going to gain different legendary points. Be a dwarf friend, treasure that grants an extra action, dwarf digger, any deep treasure, dwarf sponsor, any epic treasure. So if you can donate those, you're going to get those points, you're going to get those. So you're going to be digging around, trying to stay alive, but then trying to get to spots like the dwarven mine to deliver those things to them and grab those. So, all right. So let me show you how this fight with the giant bat is going to work. All right. So since we're going to do the combat, I don't need all the rest of the stuff. All I need is this giant bat and my dwarf warrior. And combat is a combination of deterministic things and also rolling dice. Depending upon the equipment you have and what you're going to be able to do, you're going to have, and the monsters you're fighting, you have different options available to you. In a lot of cases, you're going to be in a combat that you don't want to be in. You're hurt, you don't think you can take them, you don't think you're going to be able to, you think you're going to get killed. You can try to evade combat. Each one of these monsters has different stats. The most important stats are, well, I mean, all of them are important in one way or another, and it might be tough to see, and I apologize if it's tough to tell. But they have the 2 on that little cube there, that's how much damage they do if they hit. The 2 and the 3, that's their attack speed and their attack maneuver, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. And then that 1 over there is how much health it has. And then on each side there is a second, the giant bat has a second side here, and like you can see that that's slightly different. 1 damage. The attack, speed, and maneuver are different now. Still 1 health, and I should mention that 8 is how much fame you'll get for defeating the monster. So when the monster shows up, let's just say it's on that side. What can happen from each round around combat, they can change their maneuver. This is a hide die. It's used when people try to hide or sneak. If you roll this and you come up with a blank, it keeps with the same for each round of combat. It stays doing the same thing it is. But if you get an icon like that, you will then flip the bat over to do so. So let's say the bat's on that side right now, and I gotta fight it. Let's say I don't want to fight it. Let's say I just want to evade it. I need to get out of there. In order to evade it, I have to be able to spend enough of these brown cubes to activate my maneuver speed faster, meaning more cubes then they have the number. And since they have, since it's a 4, I got no shot, because my dwarf, you can see, has only spots for 3 cubes down here for his maneuver speed. So there's no way I'm going to be able to evade the giant bat. If the giant bat was on this side, I still wouldn't be able to, because I have to get more than those. So I'm going to have to fight. So what determines who gets to hit first is going to be attack speed. In this case, the giant bat has an attack speed of 1. So in order to raise my attack speed, what I need to do is I can spend up to 5 cubes in each combat round. I need to get a higher attack speed going. And so the second line here is the attack speed. I'm going to use, I have a little short sword, and so I could just spend, like, I could go 2 cubes there, like so, meaning I am going to have like a higher attack speed. So now I'm going to go before the giant bat gets to go. And since I get to spend up to 5 more cubes, like I could then spend cubes in might, and I could just go ahead and put them on my short sword. So now my short sword is going to do even more damage. Now technically I really don't need to. I can put the third one there, it doesn't matter. Technically I don't. The bat only has 1 hit point. I don't need to do that, but I'm just telling you that's an option. I should mention that whenever you have a weapon that has one of these little sword icons there, for each point of might that you put on there, you're going to do damage equal to the cubes that are on the weapon. But when you cover up a spot that has that little sword icon on there, that means you're going to do extra damage. So that would like do 3 damage there with that short sword in this case. So now we go to the resolution. So this bat still has a maneuver of 4. And I only have an attack speed of 3. So what does that mean for me? What it means is I don't get an automatic hit. If I was able to have a higher attack speed than the maneuver of my target, I would automatically do damage, and I could resolve that right now. But unfortunately what it means is that I have to roll dice. And even more unfortunate for me, since he has a higher 4 to my attack speed of 3, means I have to get 2 hits, meaning this little icon here. I have to roll 2 hits on these dice. And that's the only way I'm going to be able to hit him. So let's see what happens here. And I didn't. So I rolled only 1 hit, and I missed the giant bat. It flies around, and I can't do anything. So now what happens? So now, what I didn't actually plan really well, because what I did was I put that extra cube, and I should have not, but that's okay. I want to make sure you understand how this works. So the bat gets to attack. It has a slower attack speed than me. It's going to attack with that 1 attack speed. My maneuver is 0, meaning that I just did what I didn't want to do, meaning that bat gets to hit me and does 1 point of damage. Boo, that stinks. I don't like that. However, what's going on? I gotta keep fighting. Remember, I can't evade this. I'm not faster. This is what I mean, like combat can be deadly. Now, let's just backtrack a little bit. What if I had put 1 in my maneuver, like so? So I had 1 maneuver to their 1, to their 1 attack speed. That means that the bat would have to roll dice too. So we're just gonna go ahead and roll dice, and I'll see what happens. So then the bat would miss. However, if the bat actually rolled one of these icons, a hit that says equal, that means if the attack speed is equal to the maneuver, then it's a hit. So you can see why, if you can at least even it out, you have a better chance of hitting. So next round of combat, we would so in this case, neither of us hit. Let's just backtrack a little bit. I was smarter. I actually put one of my cubes in the maneuver. We backtrack a little bit, and we have another round of combat. If I'm able to defeat the giant bat, I'm going to get those 8 fame points. However, if you actually manage to survive 2 rounds of combat with neither person doing damage, or creature or person doing damage to one another, the combat is called off. You're going to have a lot of combats like that, where you and the monster are fighting, and it just, nothing seems to happen because you're evenly matched, or just poor dice rolls or whatever. So you're not just sitting there in a slog, rolling until something finally happens. That's combat. I mean, there's a lot more to it if you have spells, if you have different abilities, ranged attacks, things like that. There's a lot more to it as far as different options are, but this, I just wanted to do one that was kind of really straightforward, and just to give you the basics of how the combat works. Now, again, remember the next round, like if I rolled this and I got that, then the giant bat would flip over, and now he would do 2 damage with a successful attack, and then he has an attack speed of 2. So now I have to have 2 in order to go faster than him. I mean, there's literally I could put all 3 of my cubes into maneuver. So here, let's just do that. Let's put all 3 cubes into maneuver. And I'm just going to say, fine, the bat can go first. I'm still going to do my 2 on there as far as that goes. Let's see what happens with the bat. So now the bat has an attack speed of 2. I have maneuvering of 3, so they have to roll, and the bat's got to get 2 hits if he's going to get lucky. And he doesn't, so the bat would miss. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's just say he does. He hits. I have armor, however. I have an iron helm, I have a breastplate, and I have a shield. I can choose to go ahead and absorb that damage using a piece of armor. However, if it exceeds the power, if the power is equal to, it's going to damage my armor, or if it exceeds the shield rating of the armor that's attacking it, it's going to destroy that armor. But it is a way to prevent damage from occurring. And also, you notice these little sword icons. Remember I mentioned that sword icons on the short sword? Monsters have that sharpness or that extra damage as well. That can actually reduce the damage they do as well with those things on there. All right, so, but in this case, let's. So I did 3 maneuver. My attack speed is basically 0, so I still get to attack. And now all I got to do, let's see if I can get lucky. If I'm going to roll 2 hits here, real quick here. No, I didn't. But but there you go. That is how combats play out a lot, where the giant bat flies around. I flail my short sword around, I can't hit it, and then we just call it quits, and the bat flies down a tunnel, and I just, skulk about in the caves for a little longer, and hopefully maybe next round, if I don't hide or sneak away, I can fight that giant bat again. I should mention also that when you do roll for these monsters and they come out, if there's any monsters in the area, they will move to characters that are in the area as well. So there is a section where monsters do move around and chase down the heroes as they move. So there you go. That's combat. That's Dragons Down. Let me talk about all of that in my final thoughts more here. All right. He's still with me. Pretty soon he's probably going to get up. Gets a little bit too warm. As you know, he is probably guessed he is a Siberian Husky. He's 3 years old, and when it gets too warm from him, he'll wander off. He's got a nice place over in the cold pavement in the laundry room that he likes to lie down on. So if he leaves, I apologize. You won't have a cute pupper to look at anymore. But all right, so that's Dragons Down. And as I said, that isn't a real wide, exhaustive dive into the whole 9 yards of the game. I wanted to kind of just tell you a little bit about the rules, a little bit how it works, and so you haven't thought. And quite honestly, when the game was being presented to me, I was just like, oh my gosh, my eyes went kind of cross-eyed, and I was just like, this is one of those games that I'm going to get the rule book, and it's going to be 75 pages of rules, and I just, but honestly, the rule book is like 16 pages, and of those, like 3 or 4 of the pages are explanations of the different like magic items and spells, and another like good 2 or 3 of those are rules on how combat works, which, mind you, is a lot, right? But it as far as the actual gameplay, it's really simple. I mean, and once you get past that little hurdle at the beginning, I mean, I'll admit the first like probably 3 or 4 times I had to run combat by myself without Scott kind of overseeing it and guiding me through it a little bit. My eyes did kind of go, it's like, wait, cubes here, do this, cubes do that kind of thing. And I think, but again, it rewards you once you kind of grok it and you start figuring out what you're doing. What I think is the cool thing about it that makes me want to play it is that it really, there's lots of games that you can play solo. I mean, technically you can play any game solo. I mean, mostly, right? And people that have watched this channel for a long time know that like the games that got me into the game were like games that you could technically play solo. Games like Arkham Horror. I played a lot of like really old school chit pull games. Like old war games and things like that. That that I was able to play solo, and I remember playing those a lot when I was a kid. Back before I had a good computer game on my Commodore 64 that allowed me to play those. And I remember, like, my friend Justin and I actually came up with rules, and we worked on them together to play Axis and Allies by ourselves. Like, to play a solo game of Axis and Allies, which seems, ridiculous since, I think the number of Axis and Allies games I've ever actually completed is probably, like, 2, but anyway, that's I'm digressing there. But my point is that this game really shines as a solo game. And I know that's kind of maybe damning praise in some way, because a lot of times people are going to be like, oh, well, it's just a solo game. I want to play this game with my friends and I want to goof around. And that's fair. That's fair. But I do have my go-to guy, Derek, for 2-player games, and we've played it. And we played it several times, and we had a blast. Just kind of like, and I think in a lot of ways, as I said, it kind of shines at that 1 or 2 player level, because each of you is when you're playing with another person, each of you is kind of going on that story, by themselves, and you're kind of enjoying the story that they're doing. You're enjoying what's going on, and you're kind of also just experiencing the narratives of what's, and the one person who's having a lot of luck, one person who isn't, bad tides, good tides, finding lost treasures, things like that, and those get really fun. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy that emerging narrative of the game. It reminds me of like classic old hex crawls that we would do when we played D&D, and then still do when we play D&D. And to be honest, I mean, let's be truthful. I mean, Magic Realm, and I mentioned I was going to talk about Magic Realm here. Magic Realm the idea was that like, hey, here's a game that you can play that's like D&D, but you don't need a dungeon master. And I think that's one of those things where Magic Realm tried to do that, and they did it, right? But, I remember I would go into Hobby Hut as a kid. It was like, now the game store that no longer exists, COVID killed it. But I remember it hung on forever, and I mean, that made me sad when they finally shut their doors. But I remember I would go in there, and I remember seeing Magic Realm on the shelf, and just seeing it and thinking, this game looks awesome. I need to play this. And I remember, oh geez, it was either a birthday gift or a Christmas gift. I asked for it. I finally got it. And you can probably guess. I mean, Richard Hamblin was a genius. I mean, is he still with us? I think he's still with us. So he is a genius. But that game was not made for me. My friend Jim, who we talk about Magic Realm every once in a while between me, and Jim's a friend I've met later in my life, but we talk about the fact but that was all we had, right? And so here we are, like these 6th and 7th grade kids, like trying to muddle through. And I mean, if you don't know what Magic Realm is an incredibly, well, it just isn't an easy game to play. Once you know what you're doing, maybe theoretically you can get through. You can slog through a few turns and figure it out. I remember I bought my copy, or I got my copy, and I remember trying to play it many times. I don't even know. I mean, I remember I would like sit there and I would say to myself, okay, tomorrow, it's Saturday, after Saturday morning cartoons, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read those rules, and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to finally figure out how Magic Realm works. And I mean, and I would never be able to figure it out. And I would just be like, me and my friends would be like, we got to figure out that game. We would talk about that. We would talk about the fact that we would be like, oh, man, I mean, that game is probably so much fun. We just need to figure it out. We need to figure out how the game works. And it would just drive us crazy. And it wasn't until many, 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 many years later when I got back into the board game hobby. And that copy is somewhere in my mother's basement, if it isn't thrown away at this point. I mean, who knows where it is. But I did pick up a copy at BGG Con, like a really nice copy of Magic Realm. It wasn't unpunched or anything, but I mean the pieces were crisp. I remember I paid way too much money for it, but I did get a copy. I was pretty happy with that. The BGG Con flea market. One reason alone to go to BGG Con. But anyway, so, but I remember it was years later, and I think it was called Realm Speak or something like that. Like somebody took Magic Realm and made a computer version of it, and you could log in and play it. I remember I had that, and then there was like, that was in the beginning age of YouTube, and somebody had gone to the trouble of making a YouTube tutorial on how to play Magic Realm. And I remember it was like a step-by-step process. And I was able to figure it out, and I was able to play it online. I was pretty happy with myself. Like years later, I was finally able to. Now I actually have the board game again, and I'm probably never going to play it, but, you know, whatever. I guess, I mean, and what does this have to do, what does any of that have to do with Dragon's Down? Well, so this is why Dragon's Down is awesome. I don't know why it took this long for somebody to say, what if we actually made a Magic Realm or something that, I mean, because I played Magic Realm, and yes, I mean, you can feel Magic Realm in the bones of Magic Realm in Dragon's Down, but it takes away all that garbage that just makes the game unplayable. And while yes, there are a few rules and things going on in there that like don't make the most, like it takes a little bit of, you know, thinking to actually reward you with what you're doing. It does not. It doesn't. It isn't a barrier to entry, if you will. You can find the fun. Scott Nicholson once famously said to me when we were playing a game, it's just like, we gotta find the fun, Lance. Come on, let's keep digging. Well, it's in here somewhere. And I don't remember what game that was, but I remember we ended up just like, we didn't find the fun that day because we just couldn't find it anywhere. But you can find the fun in Dragon's Down. I mean, and I don't want to talk about the rules as being some impenetrable like wall of text or anything like that. This is not where you're trying to read a war game rules, you know, rule 4.5.3.2. No, I mean, this is a real rule book. If you've played Euro games, if you've played strategy games before, this rule book is going to be something you're going to follow. It's well written. And like I said, I think the rule book is in beta. I mean, there's some typos and things like that. And I gave them some suggestions, actually, and a couple of things that I think they needed to add or change in there. And when we were talking about the rules and what have you. And so, I mean, they're finalized, if you will. But I was able to, you know, sit down by myself, read the rules, and jump into a game. And it's not, I mean, it definitely has some weight to it. This is not, you know, you're not playing a game of For Sale or something like that. I mean, this is a game that's going to be a little bit difficult, but it's going to reward you for it. Dragon's Down is going to give you a Dungeons & Dragons experience without a Dungeon Master. What Magic Realm set out to do, and there he goes, he's going to go. Magic Realm set out to do. But and succeeded if you could get through the rules. But now here you have a game where you can just do whatever you want. You can explore whatever you want. You can go attack those dwarves if you want to. You can ransack that keep if you can break in. I mean, you can do quests. You can wander the entire map just looking for trouble if you want to. You can hide. I mean, one of the things about D&D was always the fact that you should be hiding from the monsters and not running out to attack them. This is a game that is deadly. If you just try to attack every single thing you run into, you're going to die. You're not going to win. You're going to have to find the battles you can fight and run away from the battles that you can run away from. I guess what I'm saying is that this game combines present day rules, what people are looking for in a I remember for the longest time people just said, why can't I find a D&D as a board game? People have been looking for that, and I don't think you're ever going to get it. You can't have D&D as a board game, but this comes real frickin' close. It does. You get to do whatever you want. You can wander around. You can fight. You can be a bad guy. You can be a good guy. You can attack the other players if you want to. That's one of the rules. It's a variant, but you can do that if you want to. The world's your oyster in this one. And as I said, it is that emerging narrative, that story of your character that's going to come out as you play, that makes it fun and makes those things interesting, and it makes it different, and it makes it cool. And there's so many options, and there's so many different things you can do. I'm glad this game exists. I'm glad, and I wish the sixth grade me from a million years ago would have loved this game on his shelf instead of Magic Realm. But there you go. That's Dragons Down. Check it out. I highly suggest, if you are a fan of fantasy games, if you're a fan of D&D, if you like board games, I think you should back this. I think you should get it into your collection, because you're going to be taking it down on those lazy Saturday afternoons, those rainy Saturday afternoons where nobody else is there and you just got nothing else to do. And why not just sit down and see if your dwarf warlock can do better than the last time you played. But all right, there you go. If you have any questions about the game or anything, comments or whatever, go ahead, comment away. I do read every single one of my comments, and I do try to respond to every single one. So please do that. If you're not subscribed to the channel, feel free to do so. I mean, you don't have to. No big deal if you don't. But yeah, just take care of yourself. Be the best version of you possibly can be, because really, that's all anybody can ask of you. And it's a pretty easy task too. Just be good. Be good to yourself. Be good to the people around you. And if you have a dog, give him a few scritches. Right, Evan? He's sleeping.